whatever reason, I'm wired sort of like the people that you meet that are on the streets, this kind of resiliency and joy. It's a contagious thing that you just want to be a part of. I was serving as the youth director at kind of a startup church in League City. And our district superintendent, which is kind of a pastor for pastors, said, hey, there's this church in Galveston that's been around for like 130 years. We think the average age of the people that are still there is about 130 years old too. There's 4 of them, by the way, 4 people in this church that in the 40s and 50s had a membership of what I can tell close to 1,000 people. And we think we would like for you to go there. And so I was a month away from getting married when this happened. And my wife is just a saint, God bless her, and said yes to this thing. Central is kind of this interesting, it's a hybrid like church plant revitalization. I made the faulty assumption early on that it was my job to sort of bring Jesus to the island. And what a foolish thing, right? So I learned very quickly, my job was not to bring Jesus to people, but was to discover where Jesus was already at work in the community and learn to have eyes to see that. In 2018, we had a church-wide picnic out at one of the local parks called Kempner Park. Barbecue, beautiful sunny day, folks getting together. It was really wonderful. And Kempner Park is also a place where a lot of Galveston's unsheltered population lives. And so my folks, being really good church folks, looked out, saw some hungry faces and said, hey, why don't you come eat some barbecue with us? And they did. It was beautiful. And then being really, really good church folks, they said, you know what, you guys should join us for church on Sunday morning. And would you believe that this group of homeless persons had the audacity to actually show up? And through this kind of unlikely meeting, we began developing friendships and started doing some really deep listening and hearing about the needs of our neighbors. We never set out to create the largest service provider for homeless persons in Galveston County, which is what we are now, as far as I can tell. We never set out to do any of that work. It really just came organically. I think my role at Central is really chief connector. What I get to do is kind of surround myself with brilliant people, from those that have really fancy degrees and those who have street experience, and just listen deeply and figure out what could we do together. Amazing ideas that I never would have thought of. A bicycle repair shop, locker storage on campus. And then all these other partnerships just kind of started happening. Relationship with UTMB, the medical school, where now we have a full clinic on Thursdays. This clinic upstairs is in a 1950s Sunday school setup. If you were to walk into a traditional clinic, it feels very medical, as it should. That doesn't work for our people. So much of homelessness is you're guard up constantly. You're trying to protect from whatever the next traumatic thing is going to be. Instead, this is our people's place first, a place that they felt comfortable and seen as primary rather than secondary. And because of that, it's amazing the work that's happening. And I think Central at its best is reminding people of that even though you've been overlooked and underserved, you are somebody important. And we're trying to remind the community of that more broadly. That kind of development of a new vision of where's God already at work, I think is what opened up the opportunity for a lot of these partnerships. If you were to walk into our kitchen, we've got the Unitarian Universalists and folks from the synagogue down the streets, and people of faith and people not of faith, and people with means, and folks that were sleeping outside the night before, all sort of working together. So in 2021, I did the most funerals that I've ever done at Central. And we looked back at our data. Every single person on our list died either as a result of substance abuse, taking their own life, or something in relation to their poverty. These were friends that I had to bury this year, that our community was mourning the loss of, and reached kind of a boiling point with some of us where we just said, we can't do this anymore. And so we did what any normal, rational person would do and decided we were going to buy a frat house. We raised some money through philanthropy, and it's got 18 units in it, beautiful common space, a pool. And we thought, what if we made it a place where folks could exit homelessness and get access to the services they need, but find a place to rest, to begin to dream about the future. I've had people from our unhoused community, after taking a shower, after being outside for a couple of days, getting their clothes washed, they'll say things like, Michael, this place just makes me feel human again. And then I'll have somebody who makes way too much money that decides they're going to write a check and be incredibly generous or offer some talents or some skills. And when they do that, they'll come up to me and they'll say, Michael, this place just makes me feel human again. It's amazing that folks on both sides of this are reclaiming their humanity in really beautiful ways and reclaiming the humanity of the other in really beautiful ways. There's something about service. It's how we're wired, I think, to be. And it's why we haven't spun off a separate nonprofit, because your spiritual life is your actual life. I want this to all be sort of integrated. And that's where God seems to show up over and over again. I'd like to take just an opportunity to just say thank you for seeing this little tiny church on a barrier island in the Gulf of Mexico and affirming the amazing work that's happening there through our people. I'd like to thank my wife, Mariah, for sticking with me, for going on this crazy adventure and being cheerleader and supporter. Making you proud is one of the most important things to me. And a huge thank you to the Central community, both within the church and the broader Galveston community. Your passion and your joy and your laughter and your hustle, it's inspiring and motivating and keeps me wanting to do this work day in and day out. It's just so energizing, and seeing the fruit of what happens when people can finally begin to tap into their full potential of who God made them to be. We keep thinking about what's next, because the opportunities, I think, are endless for our little island.